As announced before, now we have a panel discussion, so I kindly invite all the four speakers and the moderator, Miss Sandra Navarro from University Alicante, to join us to the stage. And please be aware that we need to have a quick section because we have 50 minutes of delay. Sorry.
Thank you, Andrea, for the presentation. And thanks everybody for being here on this round table. So I'm going to introduce each of our panelists, and then we'll move to the discussion. So first we have from Turismo Project, Enrico Collini, so if you can come. He is research fellow at the Department of Information Engineering at the University of Flores and member of DICIT Lab. As we have seen in Tanya's presentation, is the Snap4 digital twin platform that we have seen is the project he is representing. Then we have Jordi Garreta, representing the Liveggio project. Jordi is head of the Tourism and External Promotion Department at Terrassa City Council and director of the Industrial Tourism Network of Catalonia. Liveggio project focuses on how digital transformation and collaborative governance can improve tourism planning and destination management through the destination management support system that we have also seen in Tanya's slides. Then, from the TUCERMET project, we welcome Nicola Camatti, an associate professor of applied economics at Ca' Foscari University of Venice. TUCERMET project addresses the challenge of excessive tourism pressure by transferring its touring carrying capacity tool to Mediterranean destinations. And finally, but not least, we are pleased to welcome Ioannis Mardikis, representing the Herit Adapt project. Ioannis is an environmental sustainability specialist at the Department of Technical Cooperation. Regarding the Herit Adapt project, it addresses the challenge of protecting cultural and natural heritage sites under increasing tourism pressure and climate change impacts. So regarding the panel we have right now, so we have been listening during this two-day session at the convention that for many Mediterranean destinations, tourism success has also become a governance challenge because it has been also discussed, destinations across Southern Europe have experienced an unprecedented increase in tourism intensity. Cities and coastal destinations that once focused almost exclusively on attracting visitors are now increasingly focused on managing tourism flows in this context of growing pressure, congestion, climate vulnerability, and territorial imbalance. So in this context, data and digital tools are no longer optional. So they are becoming a necessary ally for destinations that aim to move from reactive tourism management towards more informed, adaptive, and evidence-based making decisions. Today, destinations are collecting more tourism data than ever before, but does not only apply to DMOs or tourism departments. We have also seen that mobility departments, cultural institutions, transports, and even observatory climates, they are also generating all valuable data sets that can help us better to understand tourism phenomenon. So we now have mobility data, geolocated information, social media analytics, accommodation data, twin platforms, even we have real-time crowd monitoring systems, etc. of technologies. And in theory, this should allow destinations to make better decisions. But the reality is more complicated, okay? Because data alone does not solve these governance problems. And this is precisely one of the key questions we want to address today. So how to transform this growing volume of fragmented information into actual management decisions, operational measures, and coherent public policies. So these projects that we are going to see today will provide an overview of how these Mediterranean destinations are trying to move from collecting data to actually using this data for governance, resilience, and decision-making. So let us begin with the discussion. I'm going with Jordi Garreta from Liveggio project and Enrico Collini from Turismo. And both projects work extensively with monitoring systems and decision support tools. So in your experience, what is the biggest challenge destinations face when transforming tourism data in concrete management actions and public policies?
I will start.
Yes. Okay.
So, okay, thank you, Sandra. So, the main challenge, I think, right now is no more data collection, but data exploitation and integration. Tourist destinations have a lot of data nowadays, but these are often fragmented and accessible only to a limited number of people. So, this concept of smart tourist destination can have multiple kinds of data. We have seen not only tourist counting, but also tourist flow monitoring, accommodation statistics, and also reputation. These data are useful when you are able to integrate this kind of data and transform the data into useful information about the tourist behavior. So, yes, these data often are organized in different file formats, different periods of observation. And so what we did in the Turismo project with the Snap for City platform, that is a big data management platform, we were able to integrate with different kinds of data in order to develop these common operational governance tools to enable decision makers to design effective strategies about the management of the smart tourism destination. I know that we don't have a lot of time. I will be faster. In multiple pilots, maybe Malta is the one that we analyzed the last data. Decision makers using the dashboard developed in Stanford City were able to identify which were the pain points, because in this protected coastal area, we used thermal cameras, Wi-Fi sniffers, and also QR codes with the surveys to get the perception from residents and tourists. And so they implemented some strategies, and at the end, the analysis now reveal major improvement in the peak moments on waste management, and also an overall reputation improvement of 8% with respect to previous periods.
Very interesting, the action that you have implemented. We move to Jordi to answer this question.
I think we are going to say more or less the same point of view, because you have said it before. Destination today, it's not considered smart because it has a lot of data or sensor of dashboards. Destination has to be considered smart because this information, all this information that we have, really helps public authorities in making better decisions and coordinating the different departments, and also engaging the local communities. The biggest challenge today, as you were saying also, is not the lack of data, because we have plenty of it, we have platforms, tourist destinations generate a lot of information through a lot of systems, but this data, as you said also, often remain disconnected. It's separated one from another, and as a result, the decision makers only have partial information or receive incorrect analysis because we are not able to put all the information together in a coordinated way. To achieve the goal, how can we achieve the objective of integrated data systems and have, in order to have a real impact on the governance of tourist destinations? Data should inform strategic planning, policy evaluation, and resource allocation. It's very important to involve stakeholders, our local stakeholders, in collecting and interpreting the information, because data alone don't explain reality. We need the implication of business, of residents, and local organizations to provide the context that really can transform all this information into knowledge, and then with the knowledge we can generate the action. So data also facilitates the process of collaborating and cooperating amongst all these stakeholders. And this process of collaboration, I think, it's as important as the data itself. For example, in our experience in my city, that we are as a pilot, as a destination, we were taking part in the project Livecchio. The process of collecting data for the project, for Livecchio project, has been especially valuable because it has strengthened the collaboration between our local stakeholders and has reinforced our local tourist ecosystem. We are a medium-sized industrial city, not based on mass tourism or not focused only on the tourist activity. And this collaboration has helped us to better understand our strengths, our weaknesses, and opportunities, and has given us a perception of the tourism contribution to the city and has helped us to anticipate our challenge. So this participation in this collaboration, it has been for us as important as the data itself and also the information that data provides. Finally, as we are saying, smart tourism is not about smart technology, it's about smarter governance. So this is stronger partnership which allows us to make better informed decisions that are taken with the involvement of all our stakeholders, including business, entities, administrations, and universities. They must understand the decisions we need to make, and they must be involved in finding solutions to the problems associated to our tourist activity.
Thank you for both interventions. I think that we have heard that the conclusion is that the main challenge is integration and governance, because all the multiplicity of actors that we have. And then we will talk again about a little bit about data, but now we are going to move with Nicola Camati from the TUCERMED project, because we would like to talk a little bit about the concept of carrying capacity. So it has been often discussed, but rarely operationalized, above all in destinations. So I would like to know, what lessons have you learned when translating carrying capacity indicators into practical management measures?
Thank you, Sandra. Well, first place and in short, we know that touring carrying capacity is a key issue that invite us somehow to reflect on the fact that there's a limit to the numbers of visitors that a tourist destination can bear without, let's say, violating certain constraints that belongs to, let's say, to the all three different dimensions of sustainability. And when we are basically in the process of designing indicators to check the touring carrying capacity of a specific, let's say, tourist destination under analysis, and when we are in the process of then use these indicators to support the policymaker in the daily tourist destination management practices, there are, of course, different challenges that we have to consider. And according to our experience with the TUCERMED project, we have learned different lessons in this regard. First place, the fact that it is extremely important to avoid to fall into the, let's say, the trap, to think it is necessary to collect too many indicators. It is instead exactly the contrary. For example, in our project, we are relying on let's say 5 or 6 indicators that are strategic and realistically fitting with what is critical in terms of touring carrying capacity, at least for the pilot actions that are part of our project. So somehow the first lesson is that we had to use not so long battery of indicators, but to focus on what is really reflecting as critical in terms of touring carrying capacity. The second lesson that we learned, that introduces something that we were already aware of, but somehow we have a confirmation of the importance of what? That when you want to properly calculate the touring carrying capacity, yes, it is necessary to have, let's say, an overview of what is critical in terms of touring carrying capacity for the specific, let's say, destination under analysis as well. But operationally speaking, it is extremely important to calculate the touring carrying capacity for each subsystem. I mean, by subsystem, we mean sector like the subsector, like the accommodation sector, the attraction sector, the mobility sectors, and so on. I mean, all the subsectors that all together compose the final tourism offering of a tourist destination. And this is extremely important, and I conclude because operationally speaking, it is something that allows the policymaker to focus on, yes, as I said before, what is critical, but in the meantime, to work on the specific subsystem that contribute the most to the touring carrying capacity. And without touching, instead, all the other subsystems that maybe are working well, instead, in terms of tourism sustainability. So strategically speaking, operationally speaking, I think this is a good way to cope with new strategies in terms of touring carrying capacity, and they are, in my opinion, quite good fitting with the reality of the med space.
I completely agree
Thank you.
with both reflections that you have, because reducing indicators, because if not, we have too many, and then we lose trying to calculating each of them. So checking which are, or selecting which are the best ones, I think is one of the key questions. And then what you have said about carrying capacity of each subsector.
Yeah, and you know what, that sometimes happens that policymakers are somehow unable to manage too many indicators. They need. Often it's happened that policymaker doesn't even know what exactly indicator is, how to fill in an indicators, where to find the data, and sometimes we know that is a mess from this point of view. So better a few indicators that are strategic and realistic, given the problematics that you are coping with, and that's all. I know that is quite sad to say, but somehow this is the reality.
Completely agree. And then we move to climate change with Ioannis. And I would like to know, because climate adaptation often competes with short-term tourism priorities. So how can destinations use data to support long-term resilience instead of only reacting to immediate pressures?
Thank you very much. So let us dive a little bit in the topic of cultural heritage, which is actually a segment of tourism and is an attraction for the tourism industry. And let us see here what the challenges are in terms of climate change and in terms of anthropogenic factors. So in the thematic paper that we have created with community, with the sustainable tourism community, there are some very interesting data that we gathered there. Out of 49 UNESCO World Heritage Sites that are actually lying in low-lying coastal areas, 37 are already at risk of flooding. From 49, 37 are at risk of flooding. 42 are actually at risk of erosion. So in terms of climate change, it's a rapid threat that is actually threatening the cultural heritage sites. And in the meantime, the conservationists of the monuments, they have their hands tied because they cannot move a stone, because they cannot do something which is out of the initial scheme of the monument, etc. So this is where exactly we stepped in with HeritaDapt. We created a vivid dialogue among the whole society of public authorities, conservationists, of course, the silo of the environmental scientists that was actually kind of not relevant to the cultural sites managers, and we saw miracles. Why? Because these people, they needed to see exactly what's happening and what is coming in terms of climate change, in terms of threats, in terms of erosion, in terms of parameters that they didn't even know, like salt crystallization, thermal stress, severe heats, wildfires, etc. So this created a very vivid society of people that started exchanging ideas. One of the main elements was actually how are we going to be using technology and some use cases that we have in the project, like AR, XR, like AI, like big data analysis of parameters related to climate, etc. So they were eager to adopt this kind of elements, but they didn't know how. So we gave them the idea on how to step in and use this kind of data. So the project actually developed data-driven monitoring systems. So the heritage managers and the local authorities could actually join forces in collecting and analyzing visitor flows, environmental parameters, for example, in Dubrovnik, in some other sites, that the fortress of Dubrovnik is very, very vulnerable to erosion and to other parameters related with climate change. And they started a vivid dialogue that could lead them to certain policies, to certain measures, let's say, and then policies, because policies is something heavier. So if you have data and if you have modern systems of IT, AI, VR, XR, etc., in the services of cultural tourism, actually you can do a lot of benefit for the destinations, because you can monitor flow, you can deviate flows from severely affected monuments. We had a case, for example, in Alhambra, where the thematic group sitting together and they said, okay, we now are suffering in the monument. We are monitoring the flows and we are cutting people that are willing to visit it. Should we do something else? Should we deviate these flows? And they came up with the idea, an amazing idea, of promoting the surrounding towers of the castle of Alhambra, which actually was a very important cultural story for them. And they started promoting, some of them, they are still not developed, they are ruins. And they started promoting with the local societies and the local villages that are under-visited the promotion of the towers instead of the main monument. So this is immediately creating something that's deriving from the correct analysis of the threats and actually is deviating the main flows from the main monument. Other ideas that came up from the project was actually how are we going to be, let's say, using data and storytelling and new technologies to attract tourists in lesser developed monuments. And as you know, if you start develop lesser developed monuments, you are actually also tackling seasonality, because you can create some products that are away from the main July, August, sun and bed story. So this is what we have done. And I will finish by saying that we managed, we had amazing sites. And for the Temple of Epicurus Apollo in Greece, we managed to get an extra 3 million for the preservation of the tent, only from our project. So we're speaking about mainstreaming here. And for Alhambra, the region of Andalusia will actually devote lots of resources to start speaking about how to promote these towers outside Alhambra so as to deviate the flows.
Yeah. Thank you for your intervention. So we've seen that, thank you, with the data, we have had these new actions. But on the other side, so I would like to discuss a little bit about this with Enrico Collini and Nicola Camati. So today, destinations, we are saying that are collecting more tourism data than ever before. But in your opinion, what type of data is still missing or is underused for improving tourism management decisions? If you want, Enrico.
You can go.
Okay. I will try to be short. So if you, in a case you don't have data for a tourist destination, look for something that describes the tourist behavior or the tourist experience. Maybe this is gathered now through social media. There is a lot of value on that in order to identify the pain points. On the other case, when you have a lot of data, also using sensors, you should integrate them in order to create decision support systems for a better management of the smart tourist destinations.
Okay. Nicola?
Well, from my side, I totally agree with you, Enrico. I will add that we have also to think in terms of data quality, first place, in the sense that, in my opinion, there's still a lack in the collection of longitudinal data and time series data, particularly in the field of sustainable tourism. And this is something that is fundamental for, let's say, to use the most advanced econometric model or to do prediction in the field of sustainability and, of course, tourism sustainability. And when instead the reality is quite sad. I mean, sometimes, for example, with regard to a key question of the quality of the life of the residents, for example, in function of the tourism pressure, is something that it is impossible to have and to analyze, because you can count on data covering a few months, maybe, or a couple of seasons, when instead you need a very long time and series and spamming, I don't know, from 5 to 10, even better when are covering 15 years, and it is something that is actually impossible. In short, I will say that to solve this problematic, it could be useful to work more about the tourism observatory that we discussed before, because I think this kind of body can be in charge of collecting this kind of data covering the entire Mediterranean area. I know that it's something that is quite difficult to do, operationally speaking. It's quite expensive, surely, but this is, we as scholars, without this kind of data, it is practically impossible to all the quantitative analysis that we so love to do. Yeah.
Can I disagree?
Yeah, for sure.
You disagree.
Can I disagree?
Why, go on.
So it's not impossible, because that is what Snap for City platform enabled in the Turismo project, in multiple pilots, for example, with QR codes with service. If you have the right tools in order to monitor the trend of the reputation in real time, you can monitor also the time series during the periods and see the improvements if decision makers apply some strategies.
If I may,
Sorry for disagreeing.
No, but I know what you mean, but this is touching the point of their online reputation and what the tourists think. But instead, I'm talking about the quality of the life of the resident. And the only way to cope with this problematic is to use survey.
Yes.
And the survey among the resident, it is a mess, You don't have big data or the online data about the quality of the residents. And I know that you agree with me.
Yes, sorry, because we acquire data with selection, tourists or residents. Integrating data where there is a high tourist pressure, the pain points are some. When there are less tourists, the pain points are others. Yes.
Yes, probably is also
But you don't know
regarding
what
the
the people think.
Okay.
But probably is also regarding the indicators, because some indicators could collect this data from digital tools, and other probably just with surveys we could have this data. I would also add data from private data, that for example private enterprises, that this is another key challenge, the sharing the data, that sometimes is so difficult to acquire this data. So I'm going to move with last questions, okay, for Jordi Garreta and Ioannis. Looking ahead to 2035, how do you think digital tools and data governance should evolve to support more sustainable and balanced Mediterranean destinations?
Well,
If you want, Jordi, start
yes.
and then.
I think it's related with what you were talking now. For me, a priority is to create the governance structures that allow these tools to be used effectively, because this is the problem now. We have the data, we have platforms, but it's difficult, especially for the administration, to convert all this information into real decisions for the structures that govern, that manage a destination. Another thing that I think it has to be taken in consideration is that it would be useful to establish common standards, because data have to be shared and connect across destination. This, if we have if we had these common standards in all the different platforms or ways to collect the data, this would allow us to improve the ability to work with data and to give a general view to all the tourism organizations and public authorities. And another challenge, specifically in the Mediterranean area, is the territorial disparities. There are very great difference between the territories in the Mediterranean area. Some destinations have have developed a way to collect data infrastructures, while others have limitations even in the way to collect the data. So we have to fill this gap, to solve this big difference in order to arrive to coordinated solutions. And at the end, you were talking about this, we have to consider, I think, the human dimension. And the human dimension, I want to say that if this is difficult, as you were saying, but if we have to choose one key indicator for 2035, I would choose the resident satisfaction. So how can we have this data? Yes, I'm agree, it's difficult, but it's essential for the sustainability, because as we understand today, having learned from numerous problems that we have here that are highlighted by media, destination will not be sustainable, not only for climate purpose and like this, will not be, cannot be considered sustainable if local people feel that tourism negatively affects their quality of life. So this is the key indicator, and we have to achieve the solutions to have this information more than inquiries and more than the ways that we are collecting in town.
This is one of the key questions also.
Ioannis.
Very important aspect, the social and residence aspect. And I don't know if the ones that are not related with tourism and they see all these, let's say, armies of tourists in their centers of their cities are willing to say, stop, I have enough. Because in many cases, in Split Center, with some friends that were speaking there, with the Rethymnos Center, they don't even own the land anymore. The houses are not belonging to them, to the residents. So if you are not related with tourism, you are opposed. So yeah, in my section, in here it's a adapt section, I would place a resilience in heritage as a certain indicator to monitor by monitoring certain parameters that are related to climate change constantly. Anything that has to do with flooding, anything that has to do with droughts, anything that has to do with risks of wildfires, etc. So all these aspects to be monitored in the monuments. And I will say again that I've said it in many panels, tourism is actually an industry, okay? But it's not 10 factories together. It's a person who is selling a souvenir in the street, some stores, F&B, the hotels. It's actually a very dispersed system. So the destinations have to move in having a center of information and data intelligence that will actually start monitoring several aspects and giving the certain priorities and giving certain orders. This, in case of Heritage Adapt, for example, project which is related with cultural heritage, I will say, for example, that Acropolis cannot be visited in August with 44 degrees. We must place a tent. Is it going to be acceptable? Or the roads of Dubrovnik, that white roads, actually, they are not accessible in the summer. Should we do something? So in the case of cultural heritage, we need an extra dialogue that will involve conservationists of the monuments. And because they are working certain silos. So we must break the silos, have a certain entity that will actually be kind of the intelligence entity of the destination that will give certain instructions. So you asked me about the monuments and the let's say the index that we should measure. It's actually the resilience of heritage.
You see.
Thank you so much. So we just have 5 minutes. I'm going to pass the floor. I thank so much so many the interventions that we have. I think that the main important thing is the integration of volume of data that we have. I think that tourism intelligence is equal to governance. So we have multiplicity of actors for sharing data, for collaborating, for implement actions. They have several different competencies. So we need at the public administration and also stakeholders, as Ioannis has said, to be involved in all that. And digital tools that is going to be an ally for monitoring data and then for implement this action. So thank you so much for your interventions and for sharing your experience with us. I pass the floor to Andrea to continue. Thank you so much.